A lot of people are looking at the number 60 to retire. Part of that is just because of the fact that you're past 59 and a half, now you're able to withdraw from retirement accounts without a 10% penalty. Now, yes, sure, there's workarounds for all of this and ways to do it, but let's take a look at this and really just kind of talk through some things, because people that are retiring at 60 or maybe prior, or even if after you're retiring, there's a lot that you've got to think through. So let's talk about a few things that we're going to cover. We're going to consider what you need to think about when it comes to your finances. Really, that's the biggest part of this. What are you going to be considering financially? But then from there, there's a lot that comes into play when it comes to the psychological impact. And I'll share what we have seen with clients and what we've been seeing with them as they head into the retirement years, some of the things that work for some people, don't work for some people, and some things that people are really struggling with. And then I'll break it down and finalize everything with a case study of somebody who's actually going to be 60 next year. And we've built out a retirement plan, and I'll walk through that with you. And so really just starting it off, let's talk about the financial side of things and things you need to be considering. So when it comes to retirement, one biggie is Social Security. When do you take Social Security? Well, if you're retiring at age 60, you could take Social Security at age 62, but then you could say, well, you know what? I'm going to wait until full retirement age 67, or even wait even longer, get even more money from Social Security at age 70. A lot of this is going to depend on your income needs, but also on your health. If you are in bad health, potentially you take Social Security much earlier, because you say, hey, oftentimes the break even we're seeing is in the early 80s. And so if you're going to delay Social Security to 70 and you're going to pass away possibly at 75, doesn't really make sense. You want to make as much money as you can off of that. Other potential incomes or things you want to be thinking about as well. Is there an inheritance going to be coming in anywhere, windfall that you may be receiving? Pensions. Oftentimes, if you're retiring at age 60, you may or may not get the pension yet. Sometimes we've seen clients who are retiring at, let's say, 60 years old. And when they do that, though, they may not be able to actually get their pension until 62 or 65. So there's a gap there that we have to solve for the income when it comes to the retirement years. Where are you going to be pulling your money from? Another one is just retirement living expenses, the budget. Where are you spending your money in retirement? What do you need? We always talk about this with clients here at Jazz, because it's really just breaking down the number. What number you need to live on, then we can solve for the rest. We could either tell you, oh, you've got enough money, you're good to go, or you don't. But somebody could have $10 million in the bank, but if they need $1 million a year, it's going to be really hard to solve for that. So you've got to figure out how much you need to live on in retirement. And when it comes to the expenses, you've got your base living expenses when you retire, but you also want to think through your retirement goals. Are you going to be buying any vehicles, maybe even a sports car? Maybe you want to do something wild in retirement. Or also, are you getting an RV? Are you getting a boat? Are you going to be doing vacationing? Are you going to be, maybe helping the kids out a little bit? You want to gift them some money through retirement years. That's all things to think about. Another consideration is healthcare. Healthcare is one that so many people struggle with, because when you retire at age 60, Medicare doesn't start until age 65. You've got to figure out what you are going to do. Well, now we do have the Affordable Care that is out there. Now, it is based on your income, so you're going to want to factor this into the equation. If you are needing a significant amount of income, you're going to pay a significant amount for healthcare if you go through Affordable Care. You also have COBRA, which can at least last up to 18 months from the separation from employment, but that's not going to get you all the way to 65 if you retire at 60. So you've got to solve for the healthcare. And then you've got to factor in a withdrawal strategy. Where exactly are you going to be pulling from first? What is the best when it comes to the tax strategy for that? Oftentimes we're seeing taking from a taxable account first, or a brokerage account, then taking from pre-tax accounts, tax deferreds, IRAs, 401ks, all pre-tax dollars, and then leaving the Roth money for the final thing. The Roth money is going to be able to grow tax-free long-term, and it will compound. And so that's an awesome opportunity to continue to build wealth that one day you'll never have to pay taxes on. And then, so we've got the financial situation solved for, but I'd mentioned the psychological impact. So many clients we are seeing that are retiring have this thing that comes into play, and they're trying to figure out what to do. Now, we've seen a few, but there's few and far between that we would call the overspender. These are the people that are retiring and they say, you know what? I've never been able to access this $1 million that I saved up, and they tend to blow it a little bit. And oftentimes in those situations, we're going to have to do what, we don't want to do. And that's say, hey, you either stop spending so much, or you're either going to have to go back to work or you're going to be completely broke and dependent on solely on Social Security. So that's one you got to really look at, though oftentimes we're not seeing that. The one we're seeing a lot of times is the underspender, somebody that, as a financial advisor, it's weird to tell people, hey, spend more money. And you may not have a lot of financial advisors that do that, but what we want to really help people with is to make sure that they're spending the money that they saved up, meeting all of their goals that they want to do. Because a lot of times what ends up happening and what we're seeing are the people who are the underspenders are those who were great savers all the way up until retirement. But then once they get to retirement, it's hard to flip the switch and actually say, okay, I've saved all this money. Now I need to withdraw from it. They're used to having that paycheck coming in and saving a significant amount and seeing their assets grow. The last thing you want to ever see is their assets start to go down. And so that's really a weird psychological factor that comes into play that I don't have a specific solution for, though oftentimes with financial planning, that does help in those situations. And so that's what we'll talk about here. And let's kind of look at a case study to help somebody who's looking to go into retirement to really figure out, hey, how can I make this all work for me? Now, we talked about, when it comes to your expenses, and really these are just general living expenses right this second, because retired Roger and Mrs. Retired Roger aren't actually retired yet. They're retiring at 60, they're 59 right this second. They're still saving a little bit of money into their 401ks. They're maxing those out just for the year though, because they retire next year. But when it comes to the income, we talked about Social Security. All right, well, we've got your Social Security. When are they going to be taking it? You want to factor that in, and you can look at different various scenarios to actually figure out when you're going to take the Social Security. Then you want to think about your goals. So your retirement expenses, just as I'd mentioned, are you going to be helping the kids? Are you doing all these things? What are your monthly expenses you're going to need to cover in the retirement years? And then you have healthcare. Healthcare is the big factor that we just talked about and how much you're going to be needing there. This is based off of 2022 national averages for those retired. Though, what's going to happen though is it's going to really depend on where you're pulling money from. You may be able to keep healthcare even lower for the sake of pulling from brokerage accounts in the early years. But at the same time, if you're pulling all from pre-tax accounts and you're needing a lot of money, that may not be the case at all. And then we've got to talk through the actual investments, how they're invested, where they're located. These are all invested in this model portfolio in a moderate portfolio. And so that's a 60-40, what we're looking at here as an allocation, 60% stocks, 40% bonds. They've done a great job saving for themselves. Obviously, they've got a total net worth of nearly $2 million. Part of that's in their property though. And a lot of people are retiring with a house paid for. But that's one that you've got to think through too. When it comes to the house, have you put aside money, or if you thought through, one day I'm going to need a roof replacement? There's a lot of things that come into play when it comes to being a homeowner that potentially you've got to think about. Down here in Florida, we have hurricanes. Well, the hurricane deductible is massive oftentimes on an insurance policy. If you have a hurricane hit your home, do you have the money set aside or built into the plan for the, oh my goodness, what if situation if that were to happen? So those are all things to think about here. And then we want to look at really just the fact of helping with this psychological factor and telling somebody, hey, you can make it in retirement, or you may need to work a little bit longer. What we're looking at here is what's called a probability of success. And so walking through this plan and looking at retired Roger and Mrs. Retired Roger, they have a 91% probability of success and projected future dollars or adjustment there for inflation that they're going to leave an inheritance, 1.294, almost $1.3 million. Now, the 91% of probability of success oftentimes hangs up people and gets them a little frustrated and scared. They say, well, I'm not at 100% probability of success. But if we're looking here at this confidence map, this is running 1,000 scenarios, and this is going to show you that you've got this really high market up here. We would say, is the best of all time. Anything could happen, the best market of all time. And then you have the worst market of all time. And yeah, they'd run out of money if they, basically had the worst market of all time. But what they want to find is a median line on 1,000 various scenarios of running multiple different things behind the scenes here and factoring in, okay, what is the actual median when it comes to that? Now, you could look at things in a different form, and you could say, hey, you know what? Let's look at it from a cash flow perspective. And some retirement planners do that. The risk with the cash flow is it's going to say, all right, you're going to have a lot more money at the end. And if you look here, look at the amount of money they would have, nearly $3.5 million. But the reason for that is it's saying that basically they're going to continue to get the same return. Let's just say, let's look here, a 6.9 average return every single year on their dollars. When we know that, yes, one year you're going to get a 6.9, next year you're going to get a 14, The following year, you're going to get a market correction, and let's just say you have a negative 15% return. You're going to have to pull out your dollars at all of those various times in the market. So the probability of success is really the map there that's going to help you to do that. So this is just a way to look at that. And then we did talk about also, withdrawal strategies and really starting to calculate that in as well. That's all stuff you've got to think through. What makes the most sense? Where to pull from first in retirement years, but not only where to pull from, you're also going to want to think through, does it make sense to convert to Roth any of my dollars, or does it not? These are all things that you want to think about when you're getting ready to retire, whether it be at 60, pre-60, or after 60. But I'm sure there's a lot more that you're probably thinking of. If you have questions, put the comments below. I'd be happy to look at it and hopefully make a video for you.